Hello, I'm Kurma and welcome. In this series, we're going to show you how to cook a wide variety of international vegetarian cuisine from over 30 countries. And in this edition, we're going to show you how to prepare the second in the series of 3 summer patio lunches, consisting of summer chilled fruit soup and sweet potato pie. So, let's begin. This being a summer patio lunch 2, it sounds like a Hollywood rerun, but it's actually a different edition. I was going to show you how to make a lovely icy cold summer fruit soup. A fruit soup is something very, very unusual. It can be served as an entree, it can be served as a first course, it can be served in between courses, or it can be served as a dessert. The first time I tasted this dish was when I was very young. I visited a friend of mine's house. He was an Israeli boy and his mother had prepared this wonderful fruit soup, and it always stuck in my mind. Here's my version. Let's take a look at our wonderful ingredients here. We've got 9 ounces, that's about 250 grams, of dark sweet cherries that have been pitted. We've got the same quantity of nice sweet green seedless grapes. And we've got 1 red apple that's been peeled and cubed. We've also got half a cup of dark grape juice. We've got 1/4 cup of pineapple juice. We've got 1/4 teaspoon of grated orange rind. We've got 1/4 cup of diced pitted prunes, 2 tablespoons of arrowroot powder, a tablespoon of apple juice, 2 tablespoons of honey. We've got 2 small seedless oranges that have been peeled and segmented. We've got sour light cream for topping, and in the middle here we've got 1.5 cups of blueberries. What a beautiful selection. Whatever you do decide on, it should be ripe and fresh. That's a very important part of fruit soup. It should be colourful, succulent and fresh tasting. Let's begin by putting our apples in our pot here. In our pot we have a cup of water already in there, and our little apples, which have been cubed, are going to be stewed up now, along with a few other ingredients. Take a look when I pop all these things in. Let's add our grapes, our grape juice, lovely red grape juice. We've got our pineapple juice, and we've got our orange rind here. I got our orange rind mixed it with a little bit of water so it could all be easily transported into our pot. Well, that's all I'm adding for now. I'm going to stew this up for a little bit and allow our apples to soften somewhat, and then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. There's a wonderful aroma here. That orange rind is combined with the grape juice, and very, very nice flavour. Very traditional, actually. This is based on an Israeli dish called marak perot. So why don't you pop back in about 5 minutes and we'll continue on. Oh, lovely. Our fruit soup is looking very nice. The apples are softening up, and the grapes have paled a little bit in their complexion. I guess it's understandable. If you were stewed up in a pot, you'd probably go a little pale. What we're going to do now is add our chopped up prunes, like so, little diced prunes. This is a lovely combination of things. Let's allow them to stew up a little bit just to soften. These are quite moist prunes, so they won't take very long. Turn our flame down a wee bit. Put our lid back on there. Come over here, I want to show you something. Sometimes I get very frustrated when I'm working in a kitchen and I'm asking people to help me, and I give someone a box of oranges to cut up, and I come back, the oranges have all been mutilated, or they've been cut up in such a way that the skin's on them. Let me show you a very nice way of cutting up oranges. This is the official gastronomic version of cutting up an orange. Here's an orange, here's a sharp knife with a very sharp serrated edge. This is the way we do it. And we take the orange and we run around and around like this, taking off all that skin. Like so. This way we leave no white part at all. It doesn't matter if your orange has lots of pips in or not, because this way we're going to miss every one of them. This is specifically the way to cut up oranges for a fruit salad. Now we hold up our orange over the bowl like so, and we cut in little segments like so. Drop the segments into the bowl. Whenever you see a pip, you just evict it like so. Now so far we've got none of the none of the pith or any of the nasty things that you wouldn't want to chew into. And we're not going to waste anything because all the leftover fruit we're going to squeeze in on top of the orange in the form of juice. Like so. One more to go. Now we just squeeze this. So over here all we have is the useless part, and here we have lovely segments of juicy orange, ideal for fruit salads or whatever you like. Let's go over and look at our prunes now. I think you'll find they've softened up. Everything's looking very nice. Take a look. The prunes are just nice and soft, but they're not falling apart. That's how we want them. Okay, well while you're there, I'll show you what to do next. Pop in our blueberries and our cherries. At this stage you could put strawberries or raspberries or anything of your choice. These dark coloured berries always make this soup very exotic. So now let's turn up our flame to full, like so, and while we're waiting for our soup to come back to the boil, let's make our thickening paste. Here we've got some arrowroot. I found that arrowroot makes the nicest, smoothest thickening agent. We're going to dilute that with a bit of apple juice. All very natural ingredients here. So apple juice mixed with arrowroot, and we're going to mix this into a lovely paste. Out of the two choices which you could have here, corn flour, or cornstarch as it's sometimes called, and arrowroot, I found arrowroot is more superior, has a more neutral flavour, and it tends to stand up more under heat. Sometimes if you make a thickening paste out of corn flour or cornstarch, it breaks up after a while. Cornstarch has that tendency, whereas arrowroot doesn't. Here's our thickening paste. Let's take it over to our pot, which is now simmering, and it's looking magnificent. Have a look at this. It's very important when you make this soup to always add the berries that are softest towards the end, like I've done, otherwise the whole thing disintegrates. Let's add our arrowroot paste here, stirring as we add it, like so. Now this is going to just slightly thicken up that juice to make it very, very lovely. Look at that, now it's like a syrup. Now we just have to bring that back to the boil. That's probably going to take a few seconds. Let's turn back the flame to high, like so. Here it comes now, starting to boil. Right, now the last thing is we add our honey. Alternatively, you could add maple syrup, which is also very nice. And this honey, by the way, should be a mild variety of honey. Here's our lovely honey. And last but not least, our orange segments, which we had cut up before. Well, off with the flame. Let's pop our lid on. What we have to do now is refrigerate this. But I do happen to have a batch of fruit soup, it looks very, very nice, in the fridge. I made it yesterday. Let me show it to you. Looking very nice indeed. So I'm going to show you a serving suggestion here for a lovely summer patio fruit soup serving. Let's get our ladle. We've got a little bowl of sour cream here and a sprig of mint. This will really, if I may use the term, blow a few minds. That ages me a bit, doesn't it? There we go. Look at that. Magnificent. Bowl of fruit soup. With a lovely blob of sour cream on top. And a sprig of mint. We have a wonderful batch of fruit soup. Well, I just popped my kumaras into my boiling water. Now you might be saying, what on earth did you just pop in your water? I said there were kumaras. Now, if there's any expatriate New Zealanders out there, you'll all know what I mean. But for those of you who aren't from Kiwi land, a kumara is a lovely type of New Zealand sweet potato. Here they are here, in their, how would you say, in the flesh. The whole kumaras with their lovely pink skin, and when you scrape off the outside, you have that lovely orange flesh. It's a very, very nice type of sweet potato, which is the basis for our next dish, which is the baked sweet potato pie with other sorts of lovely vegetables mixed into it. A lovely suggestion for a patio lunch. Let's have a look at the ingredients here for our pastry and for our filling for this delicious pie. On our platter here are the ingredients for our pie crust. We've got a cup of unbleached plain flour, a cup of whole wheat flour, a teaspoon of salt. We've got half a cup of butter, which is very soft. It's been allowed to melt a little bit. And we've got 3/4 of a cup of iced water. And over here on this platter we have a glorious selection of vegetables. We've got 1/4 of a cup of cauliflower pieces, 1/4 of a cup of green beans, 1/4 of a cup of corn and spinach and carrots and broccoli, all 1/4 of a cup. We've got 1/4 of a cup of butter, a tablespoon of lovely grated fresh ginger, 3 teaspoons of soy sauce, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, half a teaspoon of asafoetida powder, and in the centre 2 tablespoons of soft brown sugar. What a lovely selection of things. Well, what I'm going to do straight away is to make my pastry. So I'm going to reach over here and grab my very large bowl for my pastry. This is a lovely recipe that I picked up when I was in New Zealand from Auckland. A very, very favourite lunchtime recipe from the Gopal's vegetarian restaurant there, which is always much appreciated. They bake dozens of these little pies and they're always running out. So there we've added our flours and our salt together. Let's mix all those up. I've used an unbleached plain flour and a whole wheat flour together. It makes a nice pastry crust. Now let's rub in our butter. There's quite a lot of butter here, so this is a very short crust pastry. Short crust means lots of butter in it. Let's get our hands in there and rub it all in. Now this consistency now will resemble a very, very coarse meal. If you look closely you'll see it's resembling almost, or at least it's coming to the stage of resembling breadcrumbs. I might at this stage put in my other hand and rub it all in. This is a very nice pastry. Like so. Rub, rub, rub. Now we're going to add our cold water. And there's a few things you need to know about good pastries. First thing is that you should use as cold water as possible, and you should handle the dough or the pastry as little as possible. So let's splash our water in there, mix up a little more. I think it's just about right. That's looking perfect. Let's move our water out of the way. A good pastry, you can clean the whole bowl with the dough, like so. Of course, we will have to wash the bowl afterwards, but that's the way of telling whether your pastry's nice enough. Put our bowl over there. Let's just get some of these other things off the bench. And let's very, very briefly knead our dough. Okay, that's as much as we're going to handle our pastry now. We're going to wrap it up in some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge to cool it down a bit. I've got some plastic wrap over here. Like so. This keeps it nice and protected. Just bang it in there. Okay, let's go over here to our fry pan and make our lovely filling for our sweet potato pie. Of course, the sweet potatoes make the bulk of the pie. They're coming along quite nicely, by the way. At this stage, I might just stab them and see. Well, they're still quite firm, but they don't take long to cook. You can use any type of sweet potato for this recipe you like, by the way. Don't import them from New Zealand if you don't have to. But that orange type of sweet potato is actually quite easily available at the markets. It might not be the real New Zealand Kurma, but any orange-fleshed sweet potato will do the job. Okay, now I've put a little flame underneath our frying pan here. We're going to saute up a little bit of butter, and we're going to cook some of these vegetables, add a little water, and then we're going to leave that simmering with the lid on top. We're going to mix those vegetables with the sweet potato, and that constitutes our filling. So let's pop our butter in there, get our spoon, and as soon as our butter's melted, we're going to put our ginger in there. This ginger adds a very, very lovely fragrance to the filling of our pie. Sweet potatoes are rich in vitamin A, vitamin C and fibre. So this is a very tasty and nutritious pie. Well, here's our butter, it's melted. Have a look. My pot of kumaras here is going berserk. I'm going to move the lid off a little bit, stop it. Now let's pop our ginger in there. Lovely flavour of butter sautéed ginger. Let's put our vegetables in there now, shall we? Broccoli, carrots, spinach, some corn, some beans, and our cauliflower. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this in a moment. Just saute it up for about another 10 seconds, like so. A little bit of water, maybe a dash more. Pop the lid on top, and then on with the job. Okay. Lots and lots of little bowls everywhere here. Let's put them aside for our washer-upper. You know who that is, don't you? Yours truly. Okay, now where were we? Well, I have another batch of pastry in the fridge that I made before. So that'll save us all that weight. Let me go and get it and carry on with the job here. This is our slightly matured pastry. What we can do at this point is to prepare our pie dish, which is sitting right over here. We're going to break off a certain quantity here, 2/3 for the base and 1/3 for the top. That's about there. Let's actually re-wrap the top up in the plastic, sit it aside. Maybe I'll move our dish out the way so you can have a close look at this. We're going to grab a rolling pin and we're going to make a ball of dough. We're going to roll the ball into a disc and we're going to lay the disc of pastry, or dough, whatever you like to call it, inside our pie dish. Here's a nice little Indian rolling pin, one of my favourites in my rolling pin collection. Let's roll out our pastry here. Now, one thing about rolling pastry, you should try to avoid too much turning over, and if possible, although it is a little tricky, try to roll all in the same direction. The most minimal amount of handling. It is a little difficult. I haven't mastered the art of rolling all in one direction, as you can see, but expert pastry makers can do this. I'm not an expert pastry maker, but I must admit this pastry is feeling very, very nice. So, nice soft buttery pastry. I think that's sufficient. Now let's take our dish. Let's roll this up like so. Place our dish on our plate and roll this over like this. Now it's a little small, so I'm going to have to help it along a bit here. And it's a bit big on that side, so let's tear some of that off. Replace some of it over here. Bit of patching up. And here we have the base of our pie, which is coming right up the sides of the dish. We can take a knife or a fork, whatever we've got here, and trim off the top, like so. This is sufficient. Some extra pastry there we might use for the top. Let's just make it look a little bit more presentable, like so. Let's put that there. Let's go and have a look at our sweet potatoes and see if they're done yet. As I said, sweet potatoes don't take very long. In fact, these are done. So we're going to drain these now and mash them. Very nice indeed. Well, over in the sink I've got my colander. Let's turn off my flame. Lovely big pot of bright orange kumaras into the sink. Right. My glasses are fogging up, but I can still vaguely see them. These are one of my favourite vegetables, sweet potatoes. Very earthy and rustic. Pop them back into there. Let's grab my masher. It's hiding here somewhere. Here it is. Let's give them a good mash. Look at this. Isn't that the most glorious coloured vegetable you've ever seen? Take a look. Bright orange. Magnificent. So there's our mashed sweet potatoes, looking wonderful. What I might do now is transfer this out into our large bowl here. Like so. Just to give you a nice look. That bowl, by the way, was the bowl that we made our pastry in, but as I mentioned, it's a good batch of pastry. Doesn't leave any leftovers. There we are. There's our lovely orange flesh from the sweet potatoes. Over here, let's have a look here. Turn our flame off our vegetables. I think they're sticking on the bottom there. Actually, just ready to go. Have a look here at our vegetables. Just starting to scorch a little bit around the edges. Very nice flavour of gingered vegetables here, and everything's quite butter soft. Let's pick this up and take it over to our bowl. Alternatively, you can just steam your vegetables, but I thought cooking them in the ginger and a little bit of butter might improve the flavour, which indeed I think it has, judging by the smell. Before I mix anything else in here, I'm going to add my other ingredients for the filling. Let's add our soy sauce, lovely rich flavour. Our salt, that was a salt reduced soy sauce, by the way, just in case you're gasping in terror. Black pepper and our asafoetida powder, lovely savoury flavour. And last but not least, a little sprinkle of brown sugar, like so. Let's fold all this in now. This is a very nice flavoured filling indeed, judging by the aromas that are wafting up. Well, there we are, it's all nicely mixed up. I've made this a few times actually, and it's always very popular. Everyone appreciates the rich, earthy flavour coming from the rich, earthy sweet potatoes. Let's pop this into our pie crust now, which is uncooked. Sometimes I pre-cook the pie crust, put the filling in and pop the raw topping and bake it. Sometimes I put it into the raw base. I'm going to put it into the raw base today and bake it just a little longer and a little slower. Spoon all our filling in there. You'll notice it's a very well-endowed pie. It's very full, not a skimpy pie. Pies, I think, if you're going to make a pie, it should be nice and full. Let's make sure we scrape all our filling out of our bowl here, not waste anything. In we go. Every little drop of Kurma filling. Okay, let's spread this out now in our pastry base, like so. Very nice. Pop it here, and let's grab our pastry, which I wrapped up in our plastic wrap. Let's take our rolling pin and roll out our top for the pie. Like so. Let's roll our topping out as fast as we can. Roll it out like so. Oh, I think that's looking rather cute. Now we're going to, scrape off a bit of that filling there, keep it nice and dry. We're going to add here the base of the pie to the top. We're going to crimp it like so. Go all around the pie, making sure you grab the pastry underneath and crimp it like so. So there we have a fairly reasonable looking pie. Let's make a few little fork holes in there. Now we're going to take it over to our oven and bake it. I guess you could say this is very rustic looking pie. But it's the flavour that really counts. Well, I'm going to bake my pie now in our preheated oven. It's 200 degrees Celsius, that's about 390 Fahrenheit, for about half an hour. Let's pop it in, shall we? Here we go. Well, here's something very, very interesting. You can let your pie cool down, it's great cold. A wonderful example from a Kurma country garden, sweet potato pie. Well, that's it for this edition of Cooking with Kurma. I do hope you'll enjoy preparing these dishes as much as I've enjoyed sharing them with you. Happy and healthy eating.